This racist tweet by a British politician has some very interesting wording. This is Ashley Simon of Britain First, and she says, "Can anyone explain why is it only white countries that are told they must be racially diverse?" That's an interesting choice of wording there, babe.
Their bodies weren't discovered for 7 weeks after they were murdered. I'm back with another episode of White Black History, things that they don't teach you in school, so we have to learn it here.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren and I'm Maureen. Right, so today's video has been inspired by a tweet that was made by a British politician woman, and she happens to be palm colored, I have to say, because it's important, right? In this tweet, it went viral because of the words she said, and she asked a very valid question that I feel like in today's society needs to be talked about. Right, so guys, without getting too much into it, right, let's first watch the video and then we come back and talk about it. And I do feel like such episodes really do expose and to some part it puts white people in a fixed position, in a spotlight, right? Because most of them do not know their history or the correct history, and if their own people come out to talk to them about their own history, then they are the messages loud, right? Yeah, they're forced to look into their own reality, right? So guys, let's watch and then you come back and talk about it. You can also consider subscribing if you're new to our channel, and we'll see you after this video. Let's watch.
This racist tweet by a British politician has some very interesting wording. This is Ashley Simon of Britain First, and she says, "Can anyone explain why is it only white countries that are told they must be racially diverse?" That's an interesting choice of wording there, babe. Well, why do you say white countries? Why not European countries? I know the answer to this, because if you say white countries, you can also include Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, countries that, surprisingly, were actually not always white. In fact, they were originally inhabited by native peoples like the Sioux, the Cherokee, the Inuit, the Aboriginals, the Maoris, and they weren't told to be ethnically diverse. No, they had ethnic diversity forced upon them at the point of a gun by Europeans. So where are the most ethnically diverse countries in the world today? Is it America? Is it the UK? Australia? Is it all those white countries that Ashley Simon's talking about? No. Lots of organizations collect statistics on this, but all of them agree that most of the most ethnically diverse countries in the world are here in Africa. And why is that? Well, this is an ethnic map of Africa. It has all the different ethnic groups where they tend to live, from the Zulus in South Africa, the Igbo in Nigeria, and so on across the whole continent. And if you look closely, you will also see these black lines, which are the national country borders. Those black lines represent a European map of colonialism that was imposed on the ethnic map of Africa. Now, that European colonial map of Africa took no account of the ethnic layout of Africa, resulting in conflicts across the continent that persist to this day. For example, Germany swapped the island of Zanzibar for the Caprivi Strip in what is now Namibia so that they could get access to the Zambezi River. As a result, the Lozi people of the Caprivi Strip have been struggling to get independence from Namibia ever since. There is so much wrong with this idiotic tweet that it's hard to actually capture it all in one video. But first of all, those white countries are not white countries. They are ethnically diverse countries. And they are ethnically diverse because of colonialism, because of people going to other countries from Europe, and also as a result of colonialism, people from other countries coming to Europe. But also, it is not only those so-called white countries that are ethnically diverse. The most ethnically diverse countries in the world are all in Africa, and that is a direct result of having ethnic diversity forced upon them by Europeans. So if Ashley Simon wants to know why ethnic diversity exists in countries all across the world, she doesn't need to post stupid tweets. She needs to look in the mirror.
After World War I, American soldiers came home really proud of the work they had done to combat fascism in Europe and, save the world for democracy. And Black Americans came home the same way. They were proud of their uniforms, and they had earned honor through their sacrifice and their courage. They came home to a wave of racial terror. The year 1919 was named the Red Summer. White mobs attacked Black people in cities across the United States. You won't be surprised to learn that it was started because a white woman accused a Black man of assaulting her. But that was just a spark in the kindling of what was already going on in the nation. In Chicago, there was a 13-day riot that left 38 people dead, men, women, children, and over 500 injured. In Washington, D.C., there were these white mobs that included off-duty soldiers and police attacking black residents for several days. And in Elaine, Arkansas, somewhere between 100 and 200 black sharecroppers and their families were slaughtered after organizing for fair wages. In fact, in Chicago, they drowned a black teenager named Eugene Williams for drifting over into a whites-only swimming area. When black residents defended themselves from these attacks, which was unusual because they had been so threatened before that they didn't often fight back in the days before the First World War. When they defended themselves, the police arrested them instead of the attackers. The killers were not punished. The court sentenced 12 black men to death instead. During the 20s and 30s, black farmers were pushed off their land. Sometimes they were forced to sign over the deeds to their property, and like a white mob would show up at their property and say, get out of town by sundown, and if you're not out of town, we'll kill you, we'll burn your property. Banks refused to give loans to the black community because all black people were too risky. Entire black communities lost land that their family had worked for since they were freed from chattel slavery, had no protection. The laws were not there to protect them. Then the Great Depression hit. My family was made up of poor white people in Kansas and Oklahoma. They suffered, but they got the New Deal. They got Social Security. They got things that black families were locked out of. Social Security was not available to agricultural and domestic workers. Now, who do you think the majority of agricultural and domestic workers were? They were black people. The Federal Housing Administration wouldn't back mortgages for black families in black neighborhoods. This created the redlining maps that still shape our cities today. In the book 1984, George Orwell said, "Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past." White people, I'm asking you to do one thing. Share the information that I'm posting with one other white person so that the truth can regain control of the narrative.
Their bodies weren't discovered for 7 weeks after they were murdered. I'm back with another episode of White Black History, things that they don't teach you in school, so we have to learn it here. In June of 1964, 3 men were murdered. 2 were white, 1 was black, in a place called Philadelphia, Mississippi. Now, if you've seen the 1988 movie Mississippi Burning, it's loosely based on some of the events that occurred in this time frame, but not completely. So we're going to talk about what actually happened. It's something known as the Freedom Summer Murders, or the Mississippi Burning Murders. These men were members of the Council of Federated Organization, as well as the Congress of Racial Equality. They had been working with the Freedom Summer campaign in order to get African Americans registered to vote in places where they weren't currently registered. They were in town to meet with members of a black congregation from a church that was burnt to the ground. They were arrested for speeding, taken to jail, well, technically escorted to jail. Once they were in jail, they were held for hours. They were ultimately released, and then they were followed by members of the sheriff's department and other people. Not only were they followed, they were abducted after that. The 2 white men were shot in the heart. The black man was shot 3 times, beaten severely before being castrated. Not only that, they buried all 3 nearby. Now, the FBI was called in, local and government authorities as well, but 400 sailors from the Navy were also called in. There was a nearby military base where they had these men come out and help search the lakes, search the fields, search the nearby surrounding areas. Now, initially, they looked at this as a missing persons case until they found their burnt car in a nearby marsh. When the FBI decided to investigate it, not only were the local sheriff's department and local police departments involved, but members of the Klan. Some of this had some severe overlap. Local governments shockingly did not want to prosecute, right? They didn't go after these people. They actually fought prosecution repeatedly in multiple attempts. The federal government actually stepped in and in 1967 had 18 people arrested. They were charged with civil rights violations. 7 of those people were convicted, 1 pled guilty, and the rest all received extremely small sentences. While they were searching for these people, they found 8 additional bodies. 1 was a 14-year-old boy, 5 of which they've never been able to identify. 41 years after this, one man also was found guilty in the state of Mississippi. He was tried and then he was charged with 60 years. He ultimately didn't make it out of the prison, and in 2018 he kicked the bucket. Now, you might be wondering why I chose to film this here. Often in my comments I see or hear things like, that was so far away, or it's so long ago, and it's truly not. The racists are still here. Now you might be wondering why I chose to film this here. To be honest, I often hear in my comments of my videos that that's so far away or that's so long ago, and it's truly not. It's less than a grandparent away. For some of us, it's an actual parent's distance. The racists are still here.
So guys, welcome back. In the first clip, I feel like without any anger, the guy answered the lady who tweeted, right? I feel like that tweet was well responded to, and it was articulate and clear, yeah? Because at the end of the day, as I said, that was a very valid question. And for some people, it might be out of ignorance, it might be out of not knowing. They feel the way this woman felt, yeah? And she asked a very valid question. Why is it that only white countries are told to be racially diverse? You know, that is a very important question. Why is it that only white countries are told to be racially diverse? And this man said something very important, and he said that when white people were coming from wherever they were coming from, they already found people who are indigenous to these lands, who are of all color, right? It wasn't naturally a white-dominated society. And when they came to these communities in America, in Europe, and wherever else they found black people and other people of color, they forced them through a barrel of a gun to integrate and to become one society. So the natives of that land were forced to diversify. And right now, when white people, because they have the power through governance and all of that, when white people are told to diversify, they have some of them have a problem with this. And this is why this gentleman was calling out this woman, saying that right now she has no right to ask why only white societies are employed to diversify, while a while back when slavery happened, a while back when colonization happened, they're the ones who are forcing natives to integrate and diversify. Right, and a very good example to prove that point is, guys, just indulge me for a second, yeah? When you sit back and think about it, how is it, okay, let's just pretend that we don't know, but when you sit down and ask yourself about this, something that this lady could have done, how is it that a country in Africa is speaking English? Africa has a lot of native language, yeah? How just pick one country to be specific. Our own country, which is Kenya, we have over 47 languages being tribal languages being spoken in Africa. I mean, not in Africa, in Kenya, but we have two national languages that unify the people, English and Kiswahili. Right. So you ask yourself, even in the deep villages in places like Africa where you wouldn't expect, how did they become these people who speak English and understand the word of English? At that also, you ask yourself, how did a country in all the way in Africa speak German? Do you know there are countries that speak German? True, there are countries that speak French, there are countries that speak Portuguese. And you ask yourself, how did these people begin? I think Madagascar is one of the countries that speak Portuguese, yeah? Right. So and you ask yourself, if colonization didn't happen, because how did this group of villagers come to speak different languages of foreign people? It's because when these Portuguese people were first coming to Africa, they would find a community, and since there was that language barrier and breakdown in communication, they would kidnap someone from that village and sneak them out of the country, sneak them out of the continent, put them in their own countries, maybe in Portugal. Let's use Portugal. They put these people in Portugal, and furthermore, they teach these people how to speak Portuguese in order for them to bring them back to Africa later, so that they could be a liaison between them and the communities they were coming to conquer. Or in other words, they could be translators, yeah? Right. That language barrier had to be worked on some way. Right. So these people were using guns to force these communities to integrate to their way of communication. Right, and English, as I said, is a language that was spoken up north by white people. How did we end up speaking English? That's a very good question to answer this woman. And it's not really factual that only white countries are forced to be diverse, you know, because if you say white countries are forced to be diverse, what would you say happened so that these other countries started speaking English? You know, they had to be diverse for them to accommodate other languages, you know. That wasn't even by option. Back then it was forced integration and forced diversity, because how did Egypt come to be what it is right now? And even to a point where they washed blackness out of Egypt, because original settlers of Egypt weren't white people or people of color, right? They were very, very black people, like black like you and me. Melanated people, you know. Right. But guys, anyway, that said, I feel like he answered the question very correctly. And for anybody else who might be wondering, why is it that it's always happening in white nations? I feel like that's a good answer. And right now, on a fair level, like it's a give and take situation, you know. Right. If you wanted people, because that historically they're the ones who imported black people, and it's not like a good kind of, they kidnapped people and they took people into slavery. Yeah? So how do you accommodate these people in that country which you call your own? Because we know originally it's not your country. What happened in Australia with the Aboriginals? Yeah, even that is like a white person in Australia complaining, why is it that Australia is forced to be diverse? It's because Australia to begin with has a history of multiple cultures that originally began in Australia. Something like the Aboriginals, if they celebrate their culture, the white people have to accommodate that, because you can't be complaining they are forced to be diverse and you found those people in that country. You know, when you've said that, it has just reminded me of something very funny, not funny, but something very interesting, right? You know, there's a documentary we once talked on here on our channel, and it was about the town in South Africa that was invaded by white people, and then they stole land from the natives of South Africa and other groups of people. And the woman in that documentary was saying that before the white people came to their land, they used to live alongside black South Africans and then Chinese immigrants, Indian immigrants, amongst other people, right? And when they lived peacefully, they all loved each other. There was no discrimination, according to what she was saying. And the minute white people discovered that land, they took them and took them to concentration camps, and that is how they started that system of, if you had lighter skin, you were getting better privileges, but if you had darker skin, you were getting the worst kind of treatment, you know. So this is to say, these white South Africans, not all of them, right? Right now, they are crying for diversity in South Africa, right? But a while back, they forced when they were in power, they forced that integration through the barrel of a gun. Anyway, guys, let us know what you think about this episode. There's also another lady who spoke, and I feel like when you're talking about white people learning their history the hard way, there are some things that are not necessarily taught in classrooms, and I feel like some of these speakers today are doing quite a good job echoing what black people have been talking about, because sometimes, you know, it gets bad to a point where when a black American comes forward and talks about something that happened in the past or their history, a white person might, you know, be in such a disbelief to a point where they disprove what they say. It's not true what they're talking about. So when it's coming from one of their own, hopefully they listen to it with open ears and reflect, you know. Right, and listening to our speakers right now, of course, one was from Britain and the other one was from America, right? But these are continents that face more or less the same issues. And what I came to realize throughout our journey of doing reactions is that America is a very complicated nation, and it is a nation that has a long and complicated history, right? And we can never understand the history of America at one sitting. It's always a learning progress, right? And when this woman says that black people have been treated unfairly in America, and she compares it ever since the First World War, where all soldiers were supposed to be glorified when they came home because they came with glory, right? And as black people were celebrating, rightfully so, just like white people, they came to realize very fast how they were being discriminated, and even some of them, the achievements being taken from them and being given to their white counterparts, right? And also, again, she said that some of the lands of farmers during that era was taken from them, and these white people even went to an extent where they'd tell the black people to get out of the town before the sun goes down. And this just reminds me of another episode we did separately of sundown towns, you know. Before we did that episode, which was last year, we also didn't know that such a thing existed as sundown towns and what it was entailing, right? And in that video, funny enough, some white people would come and call us out saying that sundown towns don't exist and that they're propagandas. But right now, we see more and more white people talking on these issues, and it can't surely be false if black people are saying it, if white people are saying it, and even colored people are saying it. We have experiences even in as early as 2024, right? I mean 2025. Recently, there are cases that have been happening in such said towns, you know. And so, guys, we look at a situation where you say, like, in America, it's very complicated because it's a diverse country and it has people from all walks of life, all color, and different cultures too. Exactly. But at the end of the day, they have systems in place such that, like white supremacy systems, such that they've created a system where there's certain people who are made to benefit, who are placed at the top, and it goes like that, like that, like that, until you get to the bottom of the, you know. And here, they've structured it in such a way only white people get to enjoy at the top, and as you go down, the darker you are, the worse it is for you, you know. And how can you say there's no racism in America when even when you look at their history itself, the soldiers who are coming back home, they have to, you know, one thing, guys, I do believe that a lot of us have watched videos of soldiers who are talking about their time serving for the American army. And one thing I normally get from all these soldiers when they speak is that the brotherhood and the bond they normally share when they're out in combat, you know, they're forced to be each other's family and to look out for each other, right? Right now, I know it's better, although they still have the same issues, only that it's being experienced at different magnitude from the past. But yeah, that is what happens here. So can you imagine, just place yourself back in these years where this discrimination was really felt after the world was were ending, and then the black soldiers, imagine being in a battlefield and all you can see from your fellow soldier or your fellow countryman is red. Everybody bleeds, you know? Yeah. And bleeding has the same color. Yeah, not so imagine black or white blood. Exactly. So imagine being on the battlefield and the only person you know is like, even if you don't know their name, provided they're wearing the same uniform from the same country, that automatically becomes your brother. So why is it that when you're on the battlefield, you all try and protect each other, you all try to survive? As brothers. Exactly. But when you go home, you're able to turn a blind eye. Yeah, this is where it ends. And for the white counterparts, they're being rewarded and they're quiet. They're not talking about this soldier saved me, this kind of soldier saved me, he deserved to be awarded this and that, you know. The moment you land back in your country is where you get amnesia, selective amnesia. It's where you forget how much the other one helped you, you know. Right, and that is why when you come back to cultural diversity right now, I feel like it's hard for white people to truly understand why diversity is being imposed on them, because them how they've grown up, not only that, but them how they've grown up, they've been told a different kind of history from what other cultures have been taught, you know. So that is why I feel like they feel like everybody wants to get something from them instead of them trying to learn history and see why diversity is not only being forced on them, but it has been previously forced on other communities as well. Right. So guys, I don't know what you think about this episode. I do hope that it was of use for somebody, because I would like to believe that we do provide value. Yeah. You can let us know your thoughts and opinion on this on the comment section. Also consider subscribing if it's your first time here, right? All right. We'll see you on our next episode.